Hello, everyone. I'm Francis, aka FGR, and I'm here with.
Manuel the Coco. Nice to meet you, everyone. Nice to see you.
And I'm Baldo Shaka.
A good evening to everyone. Today we're going to be commentating on the finals matchup of Big Smoke number 3. But before we hop into the commentary of the match recording, we're going to hear a bit from Baldo about his experience as the TO of the biggest pre-modern event to date that the UK has seen. And then we're going to have a bit of a chat about these metagame slides prepared by Tomás Alexandre Coelho. So Baldo, how was it as an event? Neither Manuel nor I could be there for slightly happier reasons in Manuel's case, but I think we have a lot of FOMO and we'd love to hear what the experience was like.
Yeah, it was a great tournament. It was a great day as well. Temperature-wise, I was expecting to be a very, very hot day. I was a little bit concerned that it could have been very, very hot at Mythic Goblin, but I think they had a AC on, which I didn't know they had. So the room felt pretty, like temperature-wise, it felt really, really, really good. There were a lot of people. We were 52 players, originally 64, but as a classic, you always have people showing up towards the very last minute for different reasons, understandably. But overall, 52 players is a great turnout. I believe that the previous Big Smoke, we were about 40 or something like that. So there is still an increment of like over 10 players. And considering that, so many couldn't make it, it kind of made me feel like the player base is actually growing, because being 52 with so many people not being able to be there, felt like the player base is growing a lot, which is great. Lots of different decks, metagame very, very varied. The tier 0/tier 1 decks are still there at the top. There have been a very like not unusual, because it's not unusual, but a deck that nobody was expecting to fight. It made the top 8. We are going to talk about that in a second. Overall, everyone seemed to have had a really good time. Lots of people coming from this time from different parts of the country. So there were a few Scottish players, as well as people coming from Wales. I've heard as well that something is going to happen soon in Oxford. So someone else is trying to get started with PreModern in Oxford, which is great. And even talking to the guys from Wales, they say that they were trying to do something there as well. So yeah, we kind of need to keep going, and I'm pretty sure things are just going to get better and better with the time.
Nice. I think considering summer Magic events tend to involve a higher dropout rate because it's the summer, and people make more plans and the weather's nice, I think that's a really good turnout, and it'll be interesting to see as like it gets a bit colder and darker and grimmer. If that like dropout rate decreases and we get an even bigger, next Big Smoke event. Manuel, I'm kind of interested in your perspective too. I know both of you guys are relatively new players, not super new anymore, right? But kind of perspectives on what we think some of the, should we say, newer joiners, right? Because I think these Big Smoke events that are larger than the ones I co-organize that cap at 30 and tend to have like mid-20s number of players, I think it does strike me you get more people coming in from stuff like Pauper and Modern. And I personally have a perception that the, should we say, less familiar players tend to gravitate to a mixture of like spicy/nostalgic stuff that draws their gaze, and like goblins and maybe kind of red decks in general. So perhaps this is a natural segue to like just talk about this archetype metagame spread in front of us here.
Yes.
Is there anything, Manuel, that springs to mind for you here?
Not really. I'm not surprised to see this metagame. Again, Goblin is the most played deck again. Tier deck, tier 1, we can't say no. Terror, again, one of the best deck in the format. Replenish, Money Pile Replenish. I don't think, in my opinion, it's not one of the best deck in terms of clunkiness. It's very clunky. It's just a Tunemont. You get a Tunemont on the play, you draw cards, you get your engine going on, and then you just slam Replenish, you win the game. Fair enough. People like the archetype, can't say no. Mono blue, Tide Control. A couple of weeks ago, there was, I think, an online tournament on Magic Online, and there were like 4 Tide Control in the top 8. Parallax Tide is the best card in the format, as we can see here. Obnoxious to play against, but what can you do? You have to be prepared. And also to blue-white Landsteal, blue-white Tide Steal. Again, Parallax Tide, the best card in the format. So yeah, I would say I'm not surprised at all. Unfortunately, if we can check the top 8, we could talk about there are like 2 blue Tide Control in top 8 and 2 blue-white Tide Steal. So yeah, it's the heavy control archetype, heavy control metagame.
I think at this stage, so people are gravitating towards some high flying decks, right? Not all of them. And we can maybe say, it's a very small sample size overall, even though the events are getting bigger. I've been kind of trumpeting that not enough people are playing Replenish for just how powerful the deck is for a while, and it seems that's catching up. And I think Tide Control and people putting Parallax Tide in their blue-white control shells, this is kind of something we've started seeing more in the last 6 months. I think my observation is not just in these bigger Big Smoke events, but in general, you do get a lot of people in the room playing mid-speed decks still. Right? Like a lot of people just want to farm some value or do something that's not too brutally fast. And that's where you're going to start crushing people with cards like Armageddon and Parallax Tide.
Yes.
And I think also Tide Control obviously very strong into other blue decks a lot of the time. And this is quite a blue meta game. I would say it feels like the meta's getting slightly less red over time, slightly. And the blue representation is diversifying from loads of Dreadnought to actually decks that can prey on Dreadnought or kind of prey on some of the decks that come prepared for Dreadnought.
I'm very surprised about the lack of survival decks. There's only one Reclamation Survival, only one, and probably nothing else.
Yeah, I don't know if the Madness...
I don't know if Madness...
No, I don't believe so. I think this is just the Tempo Madness. Otherwise, you should say Survival Madness.
Yeah, I think it was just
only one survival deck in the room. Wow, it's very low, very low.
I mean, I guess the card Survival of the Fittest is quite good into fairer Tide decks, not Replenish, right? But should we say non-infinite Tide decks?
Yes.
But on the other hand, it's pretty miserable into Replenish, and I guess not that many people own Survivals. I was not there. I don't own my Survivals, but they belong to a good friend of mine. And obviously, if I'd been in the room, there would have been one more Survival player. But it feels like the Southeast meta is not so much, because I know at the Bristol event in early June there were 2 or 3 survival decks in a field of 12 players, right? So a quarter of the room, and I think Survival Rook won that. But you're right, it's interesting. There is just random mid-range piles, random tempo piles, random aggro decks, and some more recognizable stuff. And you would feel that against a lot of the aggro and barring Goblins, I think, and a lot of the mid-range, Survival should, in theory, check that and go over it. But I do think, this is a pre-modern thing in general, even when the field is very friendly towards proxies and Gold Border and stuff like that, a lot of the time people just want to play with the cards they own.
Don't say no, man. Not say
For
no.
sure.
But very strange, honestly. I still believe if you play Survival in a heavy control metagame like this, you can You can miss
You
you
also,
can miss the top 8.
I think many players were also expecting even more goblins and Sly.
Oh yeah.
If you look at the slide, there are only 2 Sly in the room and 5 goblins,
Thanks God.
which I think compared to the previous Big Smoke is fewer than now.
Yeah,
So I think
it
that
is.
could be also a reason, but I'm not sure.
Let's be honest, when you play Sly, you get bored after a while. You can't play Sly for months and months. It's a boring deck.
I think it's a
I can
rotation
understand.
deck, right? Like you
It's
have it
not
in
what you say.
your.
No offense, Sly
No, no
players.
offense for who plays
I,
Sly. Absolutely not. But after one month, okay, perfect. 2 months, sure. 3 months of Sly, oh sure. Bolt you, incinerate you, whatever. Curse scroll. Oh my God, please, seriously.
I also
I've
just don't
noticed,
think it's that soft to burn, right? Like the
Yeah,
metagame.
it is. But
Sorry,
it's
Baldo.
boring. It's
yeah,
boring.
no, so I was saying that I've noticed that some player have started picking up Devourer as a deck. I think this is gonna be the next big one, in my opinion, because that combo is actually very difficult to interact with once goes off. Of course, it's an artifact, and what I'm trying to say is it can be played in a different style of deck. Can be played in nodes, can be played in welder stacks. Can we like there are different shells that can adapt that combo, and since the meta game seems to be shifting to be a little more combo based, I feel that Devourer could also fit into that pool.
It does feel to me kind of, again, a little bit like a dredge, though, right? Like in the sense that I think if Devourer does well enough, people might pivot. But it's so powerful. Personally, and coming back to Manuel mentioning survival, I think for me, some of the more underexplored and interesting Devourer shells are the survival builds that are just playing a bunch of Altar of
Mhm.
Dementia.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, which one? Yeah.
Like you can't just like murder non-blue players super fast in the way that, or non-blue, non-black players in the way that Devourer can do. But I think it's the kind of thing for me where like maybe in the next little while, if anyone can pick up Devourer and feel comfortable with the lines, they could do
Mhm.
very well. And then as people start to like adjust to that, then I think you look into a more resilient and grindy variant, like as part of a kind of cycle. But I do think for me, it feels like the most promising combo shell in the format, or should we say in the version of the format we have in the UK right now, even though actually, the big combo success story, as we'll see, was Fluctuator. Should
Yeah.
we move to the next of these slides,
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
one's
yeah.
kind of been in the background for a while? This is just shares. I don't think we need to elaborate on this much more. There were a lot of one-off decks. I guess the only thing I didn't say is it's interesting to me to see more people playing Oath Terravore decks
Mhm.
than like, Terrageddon mid-range piles that kind of look like what you want to. I do understand, like Oath feels more powerful and focused, but obviously it has some real vulnerabilities in certain matchups that I think Terrageddon doesn't. The issue with Terrageddon is maybe it's got more of a wrong half of the deck problem, a worse wrong half of the deck problem, and it maybe is a little more
Reliable.
format knowledge testing, right? Because you need to know, like, you don't have quite as linear of a plan, right? Or quite as focused of a plan. Maybe also just people want to farm goblins, right? Like they saw 7 goblins last time and they're like, I'm going to turn up with Oath of Druids and just like win.
It's not
Um,
impossible, I would say. Yeah, I mean, makes sense.
And I do
Don't
think
you?
Terrageddon's quite hard to play, like at a high
It
level.
is.
Yeah. Especially because you can so easily get trapped with deck building, right? Because you can kind of play anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of macro archetypes. These macro archetypes are modeled on the ones used in my Lay of the Land column in the Lantern Legends zine. Hence, for instance, there's like no tempo category. Recently, after some consideration, Enchantress post Lobstercon, the like 4 exploration, 4 Miri's Guile, 6 Opal Wave. I've relabeled that as combo from prison. So I didn't prepare these, but the person that did has kind of followed that approach. And It's pretty balanced, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
the big story, I think, is like Xerox here is what, like 3 Dreadnought, 1 GAT. Dreadnought has really fallen off, I think.
Yeah, I think people are adjusting a lot.
Everyone is prepared for against Dreadnought.
It was so overrepresented, right, in the early months of this larger Southeast UK pre-modern format we've had since kind of late last year. I think the people still playing Dreadnought are the people that really love the deck and are really, like polished at playing it. And a lot of the other people kind of probably got fed up of like drawing a bunch of air or like feeling terrible when they get their Dreadnought removed and stuff. Otherwise, this feels fairly balanced. Normally, there's less control players. Like 2 people rocked up with Domain this time, which is kind of wild to me. Usually in UK events, control's just like a couple of people, and normally they do really well. But as we already said, right, Tide, I think is obviously a good thing to be doing, and I think people are a bit more clued into that. I don't have much else to say here.
Yeah, I don't know how concerning. I don't want to, talk too much about Parallax Tide being the main concern of the format.
But that's the thing. Like, you're playing Parallax Tide, and then you see like Mono Blue Dreadnought, GUT. They're not doing very well. We're talking about Gush deck. They're not doing well against Parallax Tide. So you're tempoing out your opponent. He's paying 4 mana for doing even more than 4 mana for doing something. And then you have to pay your just 4 mana, probably 0 mana to counter any spell, and then you lose on the spot versus any other deck. So unbelievable.
Manuel is a big GUT player. I think we should mention that. So it was surprising.
I generally believe like when you play tempo deck like Dreadnought or GUT, you are in control of what's happening on the board. If you let your opponent do something without thinking about it, you lose the game.
Yeah, it's got those tight inflection points, right, in terms of how you're marshalling your resources and what it means for the consequences of that. Yeah,
it's more the pilot. It's about the pilot of the deck of Blue Dreadnought or GUT, keeping in check everyone. But yeah, unfortunately, there's not many people, and as we say, everyone is prepared.
I think in general, and maybe I'll write about this more on the next layer of the land, which won't be out till September sometime. But I think, and I come from Legacy where this is very much the case, so in a different way. I think people need to think more about mana as a strategic axis in pre-modern. Not people in general, like this expanding wider UK scene. Just because my position on Parallax Tide is, stop playing medium mid-range decks, and if you're playing green, play Carpet of Flowers. The card is amazing.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
And a lot of people play blue, right? So yeah, I agree. I'm not an alarmist about the card Parallax Tide. I get that some people want to play their derpy mid-range deck, and then they're like, oh man, where are all my lands? But this is a format with a closed card pool from an era of Magic design that was generally, I think, an era with a lot to commend it, a lot of good stuff. But it was also an era where attacking mana was very strong.
Yeah.
And I think bringing 21st century, 2010s modern mid-range sensibilities to that, that's not the nostalgia you're going to get, man. You're going to get losing as a 9-year-old to random land destruction and stuff. You don't have to live that life. I don't think mid-range is unplayable either, to be clear. I just think you need to think about, how does mana work in your deck? Can you play Carpet of Flowers? And what are you choosing to beat and to lose to? Because, you'll have to choose to lose to some things with any deck anyway. Do we finally have share of macro metagame? I mean, this is fine. I think there's not much more to be said here either. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think we should just be back in the meeting together. And before I put on the finals match, let's just go through what the top 8 was, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to just? I sent it to you.
Well, right? No, I mean, because I'm kind of I've got pistons and gears and stuff here. Yeah. If you can read the top 8, that would be really helpful, actually.
Of course. So we are still recording, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the standing before the top 8 was a Parallax Replenish came first, then followed by Goblins, Sly, Drum Roll Fluctuator, Tide Steal, UV Tide Steal, Mono U Tide Control, and Terrageddon.
Okay.
So we are looking at three decks abusing of Parallax Tide.
Let's say 4 with parallax replenish.
Oh yeah, you can also say so. 4 out of 8 is a good 50%. And then you have Goblins and Sly, one Terrageddon. Terrageddon is kind of always does pretty well.
But that's because David Grant plays Terrageddon. Also Stuart Healy, but like two of the best local players.
We also have to we are not going to say who won the final. I was about to say, but I'm not going to spoil it. Obviously, for those who are not going to, who didn't come to Big Smoke and haven't seen the final, you will know that soon.
But people who've watched Avengers: Infinity War will have an idea of who actually won.
But yeah, I mean, I think the big surprise we can all agree that was Fluctuator, played by Ross, a pauper player. And I think the reason why Ross played this deck was because it was the only one that he owned. I don't think it was playing proxy friendly. I mean, Big Smoke is a proxy friendly tournament, but that's what he had and that's what he wanted to play.
He wanted to play Devourer, but he didn't have the cards for it, and he didn't want to play proxies. Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, I mean, Fluctuator. I remember talking to him by the end of the day. Before the top 8 started, and he was very, not confident, but he was very, he said basically he was winning with no problems against pretty much everyone. Which for me, like, I don't know a lot at the deck. I've played it a few times just to test it out. It can be quite consistent, I must say, because as you said before, it's a very difficult combo to interact. Once it's down, it doesn't suffer Naturalize or Artifact removal.
Potentially turn to kill.
Yeah, and you have potentially turn to kill. There are also different ways to build the deck here again. Some people like to play fast mana, as in the form of Ancient Tomb or City of Traitors, just to have it turn 1. So potentially you can win turn 1 with that deck.
I wouldn't in this case.
You wouldn't, but you could win turn 1.
No, you can't. You have only one Lotus Petal.
Yeah.
Only one Lotus Petal.
You need multiple Lotus Petals, basically, and they tend not to play that.
Correct.
I mean, the thing is, so I agree if the decks you're facing into are not really, don't have good tools for it, so they're not blue, or they don't have like discard and ways to interact with your lands, then the deck's very good. It can still lose to itself because you need the Fluctuator, right? And you need a certain amount of resources. But also, like, the deck can't beat a Sabo's Web, right? Like, its entire mana base can't untap into a Sabo's Web, basically. I think, we mentioned before we started recording, like, Graveyard Hate is obviously a factor. Like, I'm not dissing the deck. It's not a bad deck, but it has vulnerabilities. I think Ross is he's a very calm, confident combo player.
Yeah.
And I think probably he ran reasonably. You've got to run well to like do well in a tournament. And he probably didn't hit too many of the decks that are better equipped. And I will say, like, looking at that metagame, there weren't a ton of like Black Wasteland decks or Black Port decks. And there was a certain amount of blue. I don't know how much he played. You can beat blue, but like in theory that's tougher. I believe he lost in the semi-finals to David Grant on Terrageddon, which is an interesting one to lose. But obviously Terrageddon can dismantle your mana base, right? And they can kill you fairly fast.
I believe he plays Shoot Almost Script in sideboard, so probably that was the Graveyard Hate.
Yeah.
You can interact Graveyard Hate.
Like if you have to mulligan a bit and you're getting ported or something, and then maybe you finally get the Fluctuator out and it gets naturalized and you don't quite have enough to go off over the naturalized. I think Terrageddon's one of those decks where sometimes I think, okay, you have no most builds have no discard. Obviously some splash black like Duress or Gerard's Verdict, but normally you have no discard. David's not playing Meddling Mage. You have no permission. Surely you're just going to like lose to combo decks, and yet that deck often finds a way. Like you have the Wayfarer chaining like Wastelands, you have like ports, like you say, Manuel, right? He had some crypts. I think, and obviously again, like variants and format knowledge come into all of these things, but he found a way, right? David found a way. to get past Ross, which is, despite how strong David is as a player, I think that's not a matchup I would have bet money on him winning, right?
Yeah.
I don't know much else about the top eight except that David was eighth seed and he
Yeah,
was
I
on the
mean,
draw the whole time and made it to the finals.
I think the only thing I want to add here is that there were actually two players at 13 points, and one of these was Enchantress. So Enchantress just missed the top eight for literally nothing. It would have been nice to see Enchantress in the top eight, just to see how he was doing with the rest of the top eight.
It's underrepresented, the Enchantress.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
And
It
Alex
Should be one of the
Rare,
best deck.
who just missed out, that's Alex Rare. He's an experienced Enchantress player. I think at Rogue's Quarter events he's been runner-up once and he's finished top four once or twice on top of that. So, while it's a smaller field, the play quality tends to be very high. So he's got some results with the deck. And he's very on top of like what people are doing, like Chris Tolar and Rich Shea and other people. He's like very engaged with the Discord and how people build the deck. So his technology tends to be like totally up to date and tweaked for the UK, basically. So I think that's the brutality of 6 rounds of Swiss with over 50 people, right? Like he just missed out. And yeah, I agree. I think the metagame was quite a good metagame for Enchantress, actually. Because now it has all of this tech against Parallax Tide and Blue, there wasn't a ton of Terrageddon, which can be rough because Armageddon's like a fairly rough card if you don't have a Karmic Justice or a Sacred Gun. No Elves, which is another tough one. A certain amount of Replenish, but the more Opal Wave heavy with carpets and all of that Enchantress build is much better against Replenish than historically it has been. And really, that's a matchup that rewards being on top of game actions and like board state, right? Because you may have multiple waves on both sides and all of that kind of stuff. And Alex is again one of those very experienced and locked in players who I think like would be able to inch up that replenish win rate that I already think is probably 40 to 45% for Enchantress now, whereas it used to be like 25, 30. And I think with someone like Alex, depending how experienced his replenish opponent is, because I don't think replenish opponents are used to having to really figure out the Opal Wave boards on both sides, right? They're normally just like, okay, you're dead,
But there's also a line you can follow if you play Enchantress versus another, your opponent is playing Parallax Wave. If you have to Sterling Grow, I won the game.
Yeah, because you have more enchantments.
I don't care.
Yeah.
It becomes a game of limited, right? It becomes a game of a bunch of like vanilla creatures.
Exactly. That's the way.
And you have more vanilla creatures, so you win. Yeah. No, you're right. I think it's a really cool matchup. Sorry, go on.
No, sorry.
I'm interested in picking up Enchantress if I can ever, bear to put down my Gaia's Cradles. Well, not mine, my good friend's Gaia's Cradles. But like I will say, I don't really want to have to figure out that matchup. I don't love Enchantress so much that I want to have to like manage the waves, opals, and sterling groves. But you're right. Like I think if you're on top of all of the stuff going on, and you can stay on, you cannot like have decision fatigue or burnout. You have good tools to win that matchup. That I think. In the old builds that were a bit slower, they had less sanctums, less explorations, less opal wave. They're playing stuff like elephant grass or whatever. I think those builds were kind of a dog to replenish, and they weren't playing carpet of flowers, right? And carpet of flowers is like a crazy soul ring against dreadnought and tide control, and against replenish. It's more just like it makes 1 or 2 mana, and that's often all you need, really. Okay, so. I think we're done chatting top 8 for now. The finals is going to be James Mills, who was second seed on Red Green Goblins, up against David Grant on Green White Splashing Red for sideboard cards Terrageddon, a kind of threshold heavy version. Do we want to quickly have the deck lists up on the screen before?
Yeah, we can have check them,
Okay. Just bear with me one moment, but that won't take long at all because Baldo sent them to me. Unfortunately, I'm going to expose to the world like how many browser tabs I have open, but I live without fear, so it's okay. Share window. Here we go. So here we have Goblins, the higher seed in the matchup, so on the play from James Mills. It's reasonably stock red-green goblins,
So
two
is
wastelands.
Goblin King, because I was talking about it with Manuel, is Goblin King stock in Goblins? Because I know that some people don't play, some people play in the sideboard. So it's interesting to me to see two main deck.
Yeah, I think two is not so stock, and I think two, like over time, I think goblins trends towards 0 to 1 wasteland rather than
Yeah,
two. I think one Goblin King in the main or side is not
yeah.
uncommon because it's a very respectable, like it's a lord, right? Like it's perfectly
Mhm.
solid.
Yeah,
Um,
I play for
but
modern, so it's fine.
I think what we're seeing here with this build, like he's got both Sharpshooter and Tinkerer, right? The like techie hosers. He's
Mhm.
on 3 Gem Palm instead of 4, and he's only on 1 Skirk Prospector. I don't hate moving away from like a lot of builds have 2, and then the what I think of as less disciplined builds have 4. I think like 1 is honestly fine. I don't think that card is so incredible. Like it's kind of often a win more card.
Yeah, I
So
think it's more a sideboard card against like Engineer, Plague, and Pyroclasm even. No,
you mean
But
King?
also,
yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I was talking about the one
Oh, sorry.
prospector
Yeah, the skill
opening up
prospect.
space for
Yeah.
the king. Sorry, Manuel. What were you going to say?
I was thinking about like I kind of understand why he's playing two Goblin King. I think it's
It
also
feels
prepared for
like a
the.
lot.
It fits a lot, but probably James thought if the metagame is full of Goblin and I have Goblin King, I just slam my Goblin King, attack with Pile Driver, unblockable, I win the game.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, that's a take, I guess.
it's
It's no
it's it's a
smart.
tricky mirror card though, isn't it? Right? Because it's
Yeah, but
symmetrical.
when you cast your Goblin King, do you have an answer? No, perfect. Attack with
Yeah,
Pile
cast it
Driver.
when you're ready, right? That's the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah. No,
attack
it's a
with Pile
nice mirror
Driver,
breaker.
unblockable.
Yeah.
Personally, I think, and like we can get into the weeds, right? I think these are tweaks, right? For me, I don't love Wasteland so much in Goblins, and I prefer 24 lands just because I think casting your spells is everything. But we see, Goblin King, I like the idea it's for the mirror. I think also it just kind of helps you goldfish, right? Like he's got these techie one-offs, and like he's just like, okay, cool, let's play some Goblin Kings, to kind of fill in some of the space because he's off Prospector, right? That's the thing for me. I think that's where the space is coming from, along with shaving a land, which to me feels greedy, but maybe Wasteland
Mhm.
was really clutch for him. Maybe he hates flooding out, or like, always had his mana.
Mm,
Um, the sideboard, don't have much to say about it either. Obviously, I'm unhappy to see 4 Pyrokinesis, but it's probably correct. These other numbers seem very standard to me, like 4 Naturalize in the 75, 4 Red Blast in the 75. Second Tinkerer is a choice, but he wants to beat Terrageddon. He wants to beat Dreadnought.
Right.
And
yeah,
2 Tranquil Domain is really not uncommon either, and neither is 2 Tormod Script. It's all, I guess maybe the Tinkerer comes up because he's got Goblin King in the main. It's sometimes a sideboard card, right? But
Mhm.
like this is really only 3 or 4 cards off of a very
Yeah,
stock
same place.
feeling
Yeah.
red green goblins. I think it was a recent Spike Colony from like a few weeks ago. The most recent one that Landy Ho was on, where they were talking about how certain decks in pre-modern feel more like precons, and I think red green goblins has gotten to a point where it does feel a bit more like a pre-constructed deck in some ways.
Mhm.
mhm.
Um, there's some small stuff. That's 2 goblins, but here's Rith, let's say Rith Terrageddon, and I think
Okay.
we can probably say more about this. Any thoughts from you guys? Because I've played against either this build or something very similar from David in late June, and I'll kind of save my thoughts for the end.
I have zero experience with the deck, so I will let Manuel take over, especially because talking to him, he's been showing interest in the deck and
Yeah,
wants to try to build it. So
I built it. I tried it. I wasn't very convinced. So sometimes it feel awkward. You rely a
It's an
lot
awkward
on
deck. It's an awkward
very
deck,
awkward.
but it's so powerful, right?
It
That's the thing.
is. It is. You can feel it. When sometimes you have you start turn one Weather Wayfarer, and then you start drawing cards with your Weather Wayfarer. It's nuts. Okay, and most of the time when you do turn land, Mox Diamond, Sylvan Library, turn one. Ugh. Awful,
Yeah.
awful. But yeah, I think his list is quite straightforward.
Yep.
I don't like, personally, I don't like so many werebears. I don't want to be on. I don't want to die to my opponent's Tormod script or my opponent
Yeah.
that tries to stop my graveyard, which is not ideal for several reasons. You already have like Call of the Herd, 4 Nimble Mongoose. You need 4 Nimble Mongoose. It's one of the best cards in the deck. Plus Werebear in this case, too many. So my first list, I had like 3 Unread Brashhopper or 2 Unread Brashhopper. I
Yeah.
believe so.
Other one.
Yeah, the 3
Back
4
you.
for 3 mana.
The only thing
Yeah.
for me about that card, like I love that card, man. I love frogs. I love 3/4s for 3. I love Selesnya gold cards, or let's say green white
It's,
gold cards. It is an aggressively medium fair card. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I know what
it
it
is.
does, but man, that card is fair.
With
It's
so
just got
many
a high
control.
floor. Sorry?
Everyone is playing control, so you actually want to have a 3/4 that's almost
Yeah,
unbeatable. Like
what I like about that card
cards.
is that beats Mishra's Factories and Elephants.
Yes,
Yes, it's
that's the
good
main
against
reason
Call of the
why.
Herd while also kind of doing a Call of the Herd impression in some ways. Like it doesn't work in the same way, but it's kind of got a similar idea of giving you bodies that outsize most aggro creatures whilst also giving you resilience to removal
Yeah,
against like controlling decks. Like
Hmm.
it doesn't have the same value built into it as Call of the Herd, but also it's stronger against board wipes than Call of the
Yes.
yeah.
Herd. Um, I mean, just to hop in here, like I historically have been a werebear hater. I feel like the card's quite weak. However, I think with the Tormod script point, right now it doesn't feel like the metagame had that much graveyard hate. It fluctuates in the top 8, right? So I think it's the kind of strategic angle you can take when it's a viable strategic angle to take. And one thing I'll say, like, obviously it's not as good of a beta in general as Mongoose or Call
Hmm.
of the Herd, though it does become a 4/4. But actually, the acceleration you get from it can be quite strong in this deck, especially because, David's playing 4 cycling lands as well as the standard 2 port, 2 treetop village. And then he's got crop rotations to more consistently find some of these utility
Hmm.
lands and fuel threshold. I think with a very similar list to this, he beat me on elves as usual. Game 1 at Rogue's Quarter, which is you normally win game 1 with elves. It's a quite favorable matchup. But he had a turn 2 Terravor and a turn 3 turn that involved 2 crop rotations for fetch lands and
Okay.
2 or 3
Yeah.
cycles in one turn. So he hit me for 7. Now obviously
Yeah,
he
that's
drew
good.
quite well for that. But I think we're seeing with the 4 cyclists, which is not that uncommon for the very green-white based ones, but still 4 cyclists, 2 crop rotations, you can get to threshold fairly quickly. And I kind of like this proactive angle because Wayfarer can be a bit dirtly. And this is
Hmm.
kind of like my Terror is going to be a 2/2 or a 3/3 faster than normal. I'm going to be able to play it out. I'm going to get some 3/3s and 4/4s, and I'm kind of just going to like beat you down, almost Stompy-esque, right? Well, like cheesing you with like 1 or 2 removal spells or like some wastelanding. And I feel like right now that's a solid game 1 plan and not a bad 75 plan, just because I just don't think there's that many Tormod scripts in the room yet. Or Phyrexia, and
Correct.
Furnace can be too slow sometimes.
It's
Yeah,
too slow.
Yeah.
I,
It's
I
very
think
slow.
it's a good main deck card, but it's a bad sideboard
No,
card,
it's
in
bad.
my
It's a
opinion.
bad
It's
card.
No,
more of an
if you can
anti.
have one main, then at least you can replace it. It
But
replaces itself.
you need to play Phyrex and Furnace turn 1, so you just waste 1 turn playing Phyrex and Furnace to control your opponent's graveyard, which is not relevant in 99%, 90% of the
Mm.
game.
I think it's good into like Nether Spirit, Squee, and even like some blue mirrors with like AK and Flash of Insight, where if you're also a blue deck, you'll often both be at hand size, right? And it lets you store a card on the battlefield without discarding to hand size. Like it's kind of better in the. I think it's okay against Threshold, but it's kind of too slow if you're
So
getting
Yeah,
slow.
Geddoned or whatever.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think this deck's quite well built. I agree with Manuel. It has potential structural vulnerabilities, but to be honest, I also just like the mana. Like only 2 gemstone mine because he's not messing around with meddling mage. He's not messing around with like trying to splash like engineered plague, whatever. I'm a little surprised there's no sideboard red blast, but I guess he's decided he doesn't need them, right? And like Reprisal kind of does the red blast thing against Dreadnought, actually. And I think you're already quite good into the Parallax Tide decks, because against Replenish, you pick their mana base apart. And against Tide Control, it's quite close. It's not like super favored either way, but like you just have good tools. And sure, they can tide you, but you have Moxen, you have annoying permanents, and they're not that resilient to Geddon unless they use Tide to protect their own stuff. So just good, honest, sensible deck building, honestly. Like one of the least greedy Terrageddon lists you can imagine, accepting that you are leaning heavily on the graveyard as a zone of play, right? How do we feel about this matchup? How do we feel about these lists into each other, knowing, well, both not knowing who's on the play and knowing that Goblins is on the play?
So personally, I feel that knowing that Terrageddon normally sides in Pyroclasm, I feel that Goblin has a hard time.
But this deck list is thought to beat Goblin. You have like 4 Nimble Mongoose, 3 Werebears, 4 Terravors, 3 Call of the Air. Your creatures are bigger.
Yeah, I am not sure in general how good of a matchup is for Goblin Terrageddon. I don't play much Terrageddon, but based on the list and based on the chunky creatures that you can put down and the hate card that you have in the sideboard, I see it very hard for Goblin.
Eventually, you have to beat in the aggro match.
I think if you have cards like Meddling Mage in your deck, you're worse against Goblins, right? Because the card's not very good into Goblins. I think so. The conventional, and also your mana base is often worse, and they are a port, normally some Wasteland deck. But I think the other thing is the conventional wisdom of playing fair against Goblins is that Goblins will eventually overwhelm your fair game with Matrons and Ringleaders, right? Eventually, they'll just cast their spells, get a bunch of value, and run you over if they're not doing their combo aggro early turn thing. I think that doesn't work so well in this matchup because so long as Terrageddon doesn't get run over early with like a lackey start, right? And Mongoose makes it a lot harder to get run over by a lackey start. So long as you don't get run over early and you're like trading resources, maybe trading wastelands or porting each other and like nothing much is really happening for a while, you are passively building towards threshold just by the game going longer and towards bigger Terravors. And once you're at that point, if Goblins hasn't gotten ahead of you or really wide of you, you're just going to have a bunch of 3/3s and 4/4s and like 6/6s, right? And that negates their value. Like, sure, yes, they have Pile Driver, but you'll already be able to beat them down, and you have Swords to Plowshares, and like you can also just trade like a random Mongoose with a Pile Driver and still have like a 6/6 Terravor or whatever, right? Like I think. It gets quite difficult for Goblins if they don't execute their Gear 1 kind of aggro combo. I have a 1/1 Black Lotus, right? Like game plan. So for me, this feels like a good version of Terrageddon to bring to Goblins. And also, like once you Armageddon them, they tend to lose because they're a mana-hungry deck. And you've got the Pyroclasms and so on. However, I think the hope here is that James Mills is the higher seed. So he gets to be on the play. At this point in the tournament, you would also kind of hope to know what your opponent's playing. They didn't play each other in the Swiss, but, by the finals, you usually know what your opponent's on. So for me, I think the calculus is you're the Goblins player. At worst, you're going to be on the play twice in the matchup, right? And you can try and think, okay, I'm going to go under him, which admittedly is tough because Mongoose can't be incinerated or whatever. But I think that's what you're trying to do, for me. I think you're trying... I don't think you're going to try and do the inevitability thing. I just don't think that strikes me as a good plan into the 3/3s, 4/4s, and Armageddon deck, right? Like, eventually they're going to cut off your ability to cast Ringleaders, and they're just going to outsize what you're doing. So I think Goblins is definitely the beatdown here, whereas against some decks, they don't need to be the beatdown, which is part of the strength of the deck. Okay, after all of this discourse, after all of this analysis, let's get to it. So from what I remember, here both players keep a 6. James's initial 7 is kind of slow. It doesn't have a lackey. What it has is the 1-off Skirt Prospector, a Gem Palm Incinerator, and a Port, and then some other stuff. But it doesn't have lackey. And if you don't have lackey in the play, the other card I'd be interested in this matchup would be War Chief. Like War Chief and, ideally something to do on turn 1 or 2, like whether that's a Port or a Pile Driver. So what winds up happening is James mulls a slow 7. I don't know why David mulls his 7, because I can't see his cards.
He has a beautiful playmat, I want to say, though.
Yeah, no, James Mills is a no playmat warrior. I've run into him many times. He almost never has a playmat, but I will commend the color of his sleeves. But David Grant taking the aesthetics prize here, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, here is the slower Goblin 7. There's a Siege Gang, but there's no route into doing it quickly with a War Chief or a Lackey.
Yeah, he has a Port, a Wasteland.
Oh, that's a gun. That's the money gun.
Yeah, for sure. I think even in the dark, you mulligan that because you're capable of doing a lot more. And on the play, like Lackey just wins sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think Goblin should always look for Goblin Lackey, though, especially against their Terrageddon and in general decks that can respond your Lackey turn 1, because David has Nimble Mongoose and Sword to Plowshares turn 1.
Yeah. Even just chump blocking with Wayfarer if you don't have a Gem Palm Incinerator, right? Like a good pre-modern player, I think will aggressively trade any creature they can with a Lackey in the early game. So this second 7, or this 6, I guess, from James is also quite slow. It has a Mog Fanatic. I don't think it has a Port. I think it has a Wasteland. There's still no War Chief or Lackey. But I believe he ends up keeping it. I can see it. Personally, I think just because it's a slightly difficult matchup, I would probably go to 5 to try and do something better. Maybe with a Port or something, I might have kept the 6. But this does feel a little bit do nothing to me still.
I wouldn't go to 5. You're an aggro deck. If you go, you're an aggro deck. If you go to 5, you take the risk like floating out. Your draws are not the best.
I agree.
You take a huge risk going
it's
to 5.
A high risk, high reward plan. I just think the reward, it kind of depends, but I think if you get to Lackey into a Ringleader or a Siege Gang, you've already made up the card disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is a reluctant keep. So yeah, here we have Mog Fanaticing the turn 1 Weathered Wayfarer, and these early turns have a lot of sense of deja vu, as you guys are going to see.
I believe James Smith kept a decent hand at the end.
I think it's reluctant keep territory for me, like I say. I wouldn't be happy with that 6.
Obviously, Wasteland plus Weathered Wayfarer.
Yeah, and I think also here, as we'll see, I think with the Terrageddon deck, you just wasteland anything you can wasteland.
Yes.
Because, as I mentioned before we started promoting the video, if you just trade resources, you're eventually going to get to a point where you can start making bigger bodies than what goblins can make. And so it's in your interest to just slow the game down while passively, growing your graveyard.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
Exactly.
He just took another Wasteland, most likely to just slow him down.
He's taking turns, more turns.
What I like here is wastelanding the Wasteland, right? He's not trying to wait to color screw him. He's just like, no, one less land drop for you, And I'm a big fan of that.
It doesn't need to destroy the mana color. It needs to slow down the Ringleader, War Chief, and Siege Gang. Anything else doesn't matter. You can deploy any Pile Driver. I don't care.
And here we have the strategy, right? So even though 2 Wayfarers have died to Mog Fanatics, just getting 1 Wasteland was enough. We have a Port in play. James is not able to do very much right now.
Mm-hmm.
And here we're going to see very disciplined play from David. He's just going to play the prison thing. Here he cycles, but he's not in a hurry.
So at this point, Terror is already 1, 2, 3, 4, a 6/6.
Yeah, man, exactly. Like, he's already golden.
Are you gonna be a 6/6 with Goblin? You can't.
But I
Sure.
love this. Just like, here's a Sylvan Library, I'm going to keep porting you, good luck.
Yeah, library in this deck is crazy.
That's nuts. It's so powerful.
Yeah. I think really it's more about the selection than the value, to be honest, because the thing that Terrageddon has is it has such powerful and specific tools for different situations, and it, between, you know, the 4 fetches, 2 crop rotations, 4 cycle lands, 3 wayfarers, he has ways to either dig through a library pile or shuffle it away, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, big fan. I mean, this is a great strategic position for David, even though it doesn't seem like he's doing that much. And so you might think, well, eventually the Goblin Spare will start casting their cards. As we say, what David is working toward here is just big guys, right?
Yes, but I think he drew 1 Werebear and 1 fetch land, so he's already on threshold for 2 mana. Yes, cool.
Which is where I think his deck construction is getting rewarded, because if he was playing no Werebear, no Mongoose, and some meddling mages, he wouldn't be able to adopt this posture with the same reliability. Yeah, look at this.
Yeah, there you go.
Here's 7 power. I'm still porting you.
Yeah.
This is a slightly shortcutted moment. What's happened here is, in James's upkeep, in response to getting ported, he cycles a gem palm just to draw a card. So it may look to the viewers that this is an end step action, but actually what's happening is he's not untapping because he's planning to tap out. Oh no, he's untapping now. Yeah, there we go.
3 turn clock, and then
forgets to draw for turn, but it's rectified. Yeah, so. And I'm just a big fan of how David does his library draws here. I think sometimes people get into an awkward situation where they're trying to have all the cards in both hands at the same time, but he looks at the library pile and then reviews his hand. It's a small thing, but I think these are some of the procedural edges that are good to pick up as a Magic player. And yeah, I mean, this is the game already, I would argue. I don't think, even without the port, I don't think you can do much. Call of the Herd, already just very solid. Here we have David slightly introducing some cognitive dissonance into his aesthetics by putting a Monzo card down as a token. Though maybe it's a reference to how expensive original printing Call of the Herd has become.
How much is it now? 15 quid?
I don't want to know. So here we have a War Chief that can't be cast, but it's been caught at the table, thankfully. And David's saying, it's chill, don't worry. He's a great opponent to play with, I'll say. He's very clear, very friendly, very calm.
But this is game. This is definitely game. I would concede at this point. There's no way.
I mean, the game was over the turn he played the Mongoose and the Werebear, right? That's just everything else after that is just bonus, right? The Elephant, the Treetop Village.
Even James missed some land drops.
Yeah.
Which is not.
Well, there were 2 wastelands and.
Yeah.
And a port for a while, right? But yeah, I mean, also, it's not that that's what determined the game, but 23 lands, not 24.
Scoop.
And he's playing stuff like 2 Wasteland instead of maybe a Moss Fire Valley or a City of Brass or something. I don't want to over-determine that, right? I'm not saying that's the reason. I'm just saying we're seeing here Goblins' vulnerability against this build, but also a build of Goblins that is even slightly more vulnerable, I think, to mana disruption.
Probably, yeah. With 23 lands, as you say, yeah, you're definitely more vulnerable than a regular Goblin. Yeah.
I'm just also a big fan of Goblins builds that are playing 1 Mossfire Valley and 1 City of Brass or something like that. Just cast your spells, you know? I don't think you need many Wastelands at all to win games. I think Port is already busted in your deck because you can port whilst building toward your kind of value positive game breakers. So the sideboarding here, we're going to see some of it shown on screen, but I made notes. What happens is David cuts his 3 Weathered Wayfarers and a Sylvan Library, which I don't mind, especially on the draw, but the 3rd Sylvan Library, it's bad in multiples. He cuts those, adds 4 Pyroclasm, job's done. Easy.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need anything else.
I'll wait for James because he shows what he boards in and out to the camera, whereas David only shows what he boards out. He doesn't show the pyroclasm, so it's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
But in a moment, we're going to see from James, because I think his decisions are, to me, interesting. I don't think they're like obviously bad, but I don't know if they. What? Oh, he did show the pyroclasms. Okay, I was distracted. But yeah, and I believe there's no re-sideboarding between games 2 and 3. Like, this is a pretty straightforward matchup, I think, and neither deck is an engine deck in the way something like Elves is.
I guess this is where Skirk Prospector comes in handy in Goblin, because he doesn't suffer the ports or wastelands, and it kind of can give you a little bit of acceleration. Does normally Goblin play one only, a few, or?
I've seen 4, but I think 2 is the most common number nowadays. Sometimes, it's kind of 2.4 or something feels like the average number of copies to me. And James is only on 1. Okay, so here we have 2 Crypts, a Tinker, and a Naturalize coming in. So not 2 Naturalize, but 1. He's prioritizing having the second Tinker as a body, even though it can't answer a Sylvan Library, or sometimes Terrageddon has Oath of Druids. Though I don't. For me, my calculus for that is if I see Rith's Grove, I assume Pyroclasm rather than Oath, but I don't think he saw Rith's Grove. Tinker doesn't do that much. Like, it blows up Mox Diamond and it's a body. But I'm not that impressed by it, and I don't know if I'd want the second. Whereas what he's bringing in, what he's cutting rather, is the 2 Goblin King, a Siege Gang Commander, and a Pile Driver. For me,
which is strange, right? Because I would expect Goblin King. I would have kept them in.
Yeah, I would have kept the Goblin King.
Like, you should expect Pyroclasm.
Well, it doesn't. Right? One Goblin King doesn't beat Pyroclasm because the King dies and then everything is 2 damage much in it. For me, King I can take or leave, and the Crypts I think are good enough, especially with all the Threshold guys. I don't mind some Naturalize. I guess he's already got 2 mains, so more than 3 seems excessive.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd cut the Siege Gang. I would cut a Ringleader before the Siege Gang on the play, at least, because on the play you have more of a combo potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Like, you're not winning through Ringleadering, right? And with 3 Ringleader, you can still Matron for it if you need to. Like, I don't think this is a matchup about Ringleader. Whereas I actually think cards like Pile Driver and Siege Gang, especially together, are kind of how you win. Also, Siege Gang can force your opponent to blow a Pyroclasm that kind of trades 1 for 1, basically. These are small things, though. We note that James did not have a turn 1 play. I believe he has a Tinkerer here. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to remember. I don't know about mulligans for this game. I didn't make notes on that. But this to me feels like a slightly anemic Goblins development.
Yeah.
It has a bunch of lands, I think, but still, like, this to me feels like you're at disadvantage. You're staring down like a port, a library, and a 1/1 that you can't interact with.
Always library, always.
Yeah, man. I mean, why play more than 2 in the deck when you're just going to draw 1 anyway? Well, post-board, he has 3 in the main deck, but, you know, he knows what's up. He's on the draw, so he's going to draw the extra card, and that'll be the library. So I'm trying to remember what happens here. We've got the portal. Oh, yes, and he goes double Lackey.
Oh, wow.
I get it. You want to overwhelm the Mongoose, but, like, right now, you are praying that there's no Pyroclasm. Or even Engineered Plague, right? Like, not that he's seen signs to suggest this is a 4 or 5 color build, but, like, this to me feels awfully risky.
Yeah. Especially, like, I wonder why he decided to play Goblin Tinker when he had a Goblin Lackey in hand. I mean, if he had 2, that means that 1 was drawn.
Yeah, probably you don't want to trade Goblin Lackey.
Well, it's his turn 3, so he's had 2 draw steps. Maybe he literally drew Lackey.
Yeah, probably.
Which is, like, probably the worst possible, right?
Definitely, yeah, absolutely.
That's my interpretation.
It doesn't make any sense otherwise.
Maybe he misplayed, but I think he just, like, kept a hand without a 1-drop and then was like, oh, for fuck's sake. Sorry about my language, but you know what I mean? I'm sure that's how it feels. I wouldn't have hated playing one lackey and then porting, though I guess port doesn't stop you from getting pyroclasmed. But if you're thinking about
Yeah.
pyroclasm, you can probably bait it with one lackey, and that's going to get rid of the mongoose, and then hopefully, you can then play another lackey and keep porting. Anyway, here we have David tanking. He spent a while thinking about his library, didn't pay life into it, and we're going to see him take, well, we're about to see, but he takes quite a strong play here to just like wipe out what's on the board. What he's thinking about here, I think, we're going to see, he's about to cast the crop rotation. I don't know if he's thinking about whether he wants to cast it or what he wants to sacrifice to it. Yeah, gets his free damage in.
Okay, yes, paragraphs. Yes, paragraphs, for sure.
So the only thing here is, in the face of a port, I don't know if I like sacrificing my colored source to get red.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Gems and Mine, though, it's probably a little bit better.
No, for
and he
sure.
also has library, so he can still
dig to more. But I think keeping the port here is a little bit greedy for me, because it leaves you to a potential scenario where you just can't cast any spells for a while, right? So I might have wanted personally to keep the forest in play, but I think it's close. Anyway, here is the 2 for 3.
I think also David probably thought, if my opponent doesn't do anything in this turn and just won't support me, he's spending 2 mana to tap one of my mana. I don't really care, so I'm happy with it.
He does get punished here, though, by the Wasteland. I agree. I don't think it's a terrible line. I just think it's a slightly greedy line.
Yes,
and I think when you have library in play, and you're building towards these threshold, bodies, I like playing it a little bit like more conservative.
Yeah, here he was punished quite badly because he's now so behind David. I mean, I don't know.
Not really, honestly. I would say if he draws like a fetch land and then he plays a Wereberry as a 4/4 already.
It's true. I think it depends on that, and that's his hand composition to some extent, though he is digging 3 deep. I think it also depends how reliably this ringleader is going to come down. And the Wasteland here helps. I think he knows what's up, because otherwise we are in the phase of the game where Matron for ringleader is functional. But he's put that off. I do think, though, this is all risky, and he kind of wishes he had like a 3/3 in play at this point, right?
Yeah.
Tinkerer number 2.
Tinkerers are doing nothing.
Yeah, man. I don't mind 1. Like, I don't mind 1 if you have a port situation as the Goblins play and you can start blowing up Mox Diamonds, but like 2 just...
Yeah, it seems a lot. Especially, I don't understand what he was expecting. Why does he want an extra one? Is it just to have more on board?
I guess so, but then he cut a creature he cut 4 creatures for a creature and 3 non-creatures, right? And naturalize in 2 Tormod script. Personally, I might have been tempted to just stick to 2 naturalize, bring in 2 Tormod script, and cut, like, I don't know, the Goblin Kings or something, and just call it a day. Like, keep 4 Pile Driver, keep 3 Siege Gang, just try and do your thing. I don't think you get to be the prison deck. Right, and if you really end up being the prison deck, that's because you matron for your 1 Tinkerer, which I think is still okay. I don't think you're expecting like Curse Totem here. I mean, Curse Totem doesn't do anything against goblins really. Like it stops like Scope Prospector and Siege Gang activations, but who cares? So we have a 3/3 here, and we have James digging deeper with the Gem Pump that doesn't do anything. But he's still ahead on mana. He still has a Ringleader in hand.
Okay.
And I don't think David is in a position, especially because his land is a gemstone, I don't think he's in a position where he can commit to porting James off of his Ringleader, right? Like, sure, his 3/3 locks down these attackers for now, but it's kind of an ugly situation. Like, I think right now what he wants is a nice mana source and like a Call of the Herd or something, and to hope that the follow-up is not too powerful.
I would like to see a Pyroclasm in this case.
Oh, of course. Well, in fact, he has one in
So
hand.
so they are both in the situation where James is missing on end drop.
Yes.
Yeah,
Here we go.
here it is. He's deploying more mana sources to get his ringleader and other creature in play. But in this case, if he also casts a ringleader, doesn't do anything. You got 2/2 versus my 3/3. I don't care. Again,
I think it's. Go on. Sorry.
no, it's fine. I was mainly saying, okay, now it's the ringleader, so you take
I
the
think this
risk.
one whiffs.
Yeah. See,
And it's
no,
2 of the
miss.
3 naturalizers, right?
Four mana. This is the problem now. About okay, now you get the.
I don't really understand this block unless he just
Yeah.
like wants to force the crypt now because he knows as the game goes on the crypt is going to become more annoying.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Which, maybe that's just an experienced and disciplined play to take. Maybe he's like, well, I've gotten a lot of value. The other thing is like his life total is randomly 7, right? Like that's the other thing to think about.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess the idea is you're not exactly preserving the value of your mongoose by keeping it in play because it can get crypted anyway, and this way he can try and rebuild. It's just kind of a feel bad situation, especially because his gemstone mine has 1 counter left on it.
Oh,
He really
no,
needs like a
so-
Ritz Grove or like green source into crop rotation. Okay, so
Right.
here the last card is another ringleader, which is the classic with goblins. And let's see what it hits. And it hits 3 goblins.
Yeah. Fair.
I think he saw the top card here, so the agreed ruling is that he's just going to shuffle his library.
I think ringleader is such an important card in this matchup because it keeps on fuel your hand.
It's your gas.
Yeah.
It's your gas.
It's good against Pyroclasm, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a generally good card, but it's a great card against Pyroclasm because it keeps on putting threat on the board.
Though, again, I still stand by my position. I didn't really like cutting the Siege Gang, because Siege Gang's good against Pyroclasm in its own way, in the sense that if your opponent doesn't Pyroclasm you, you win the game.
Yeah.
And you don't need to commit anything else from your hand. But yeah, we see here David's mana isn't really developed. Yeah, he's just like, I'm dead. David's got that old school and vintage. I don't know if he plays vintage, but I first saw this attitude in vintage players, and I think old school players have it too. And he is an old school player, where they're like, I don't want to play this out any longer. Not that they're tilting; they're just like, look, I know what's up. I'm dead. Let's go to the next game.
Makes sense. I do the same. When I see I can't win the game anymore, just let's go next game. There's no point.
I think at the Brighton event back in February, he literally just conceded in response to me playing a hasty Priest of Titania with Survival out, right? Like, he didn't even wait to see what I did with it. He was just like, yeah, right. I think I actually didn't have any creatures in hand at that point, but he was massively behind in that game, so I think it's fair enough.
Talking about elves for a second, what's your game plan against red decks? Is it just praying or like fly,
I don't know if I want to
goblins?
give away the technology. Look.
Well, it's just for other elves players.
No, exactly. I
struggling.
agree, and I am an educator by trade. Look, if you're an elves player, have a high land count for elves. Play 19 or 20 lands. If you're playing 20 lands, you can consider some ports, like maybe 2. If you're playing 19 lands, no utility lands. Just cradles, a mountain, fetch lands, and forests. Have 4 Call of the Herd in your sideboard, or unless you're experimenting with Phantom Nantuko, which I'm still trying to figure out, but they're kind of similar against red. Have multiple ways to remove stuff. Some people play Goblin Sharpshooter. I don't love it, because I think it's a lot worse against Burn and Goblins than it is against the Elves Mirror. But for instance, I play Thornscape Battle Mage. I play a second Masticore in the side.
Yeah, Masticore seems pretty good.
The way you win, look, the way you beat, okay, so the way you beat Burn is actually through random racing, where you like kind of trade resources because they have to not get comboed by you, but then you just beat them down with like 1/1s and 2/1s and 3/3s. And I think Burn is very 50-50 if you build your deck well. Like, it's very close. Goblins is tougher, but the way you beat Goblins is fundamentally it's about 3 mana 3/3s, right? It's about Call of the Herd, but like basically you do one of 2 things. either you do some Tangle Wire Winter Orb stuff, and they can't really cast their spells, and eventually your 3/3s and Cradles kill them, and Port is quite good against them. Or you like trade off for their lackeys and make land drops and just play Call of the Herds, and then eventually you play a Masticore and they lose the game. Even if you don't have crazy mana, right? It's just like your board is too good for them. That's how you beat red decks. And I think Goblins is still a bad matchup. I think Burn is still a close matchup. But against non-Callum Smith Goblins players, I'm like 3-1 in tournaments. And against Burn, I'm like 2-1 or something. Like, it works. Just don't be greedy with your lands. Play a bunch of 3/3s and 4/4s in your 75, and you'll be okay. And remember that hating on both Burn and Goblins' mana is actually good. Like, they need their mana. Tangle Wire is broken. What can I say? Anyway, this match, in fact, do you mind... you made the mistake of asking me about about elves, and I gave you a really long answer. Can we quickly rewind to the start of this game and just talk about the hands they kept? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not been long into the game. As always, I don't know what kind of a hand David kept, but James keeps a 7 that's kind of slow. It has a Naturalize and a bunch of lands, but it doesn't have a lackey. I think maybe it has a War Chief. So it has a turn 3 War Chief, but I think this hand is a little bit slow. Like, I get that he's traumatized by the turn 2 Sylvan Library both games, but with no port and on the play, I would probably go to 6 here, I think. He's on the draw. Sorry, my bad. But still, even then, I don't love the keep.
Nimble Mongoose is such a good card.
Yeah, man. It's amazing against red decks, right? Like,
yeah.
Versus control. It's unbeatable. You can't beat Mongoose.
Yeah, it's
to be
good
honest,
against Wireless Wave as well.
It's good against most random blue decks, even like tempo decks, because it comes in under most counter magic, and then like they can't remove it, and you can just trade resources.
Yeah.
So good.
Look at this curve, though, from David, right? He's got a port in play, which is getting wasted, sure, but he has a mana dork and an unremovable 1/1.
For me, that was wrong.
For you was wrong.
Wasting the port was wrong.
Yeah,
I would
because...
just play a fetch or something, I think, if he has one, or just basics.
I think he has one.
I think, in my opinion, I feel that James didn't realize that Werebear adds mana, so...
I mean, he plays like he's an old player, though. I don't mean like physically old. What I mean is he has a lot of experience. So maybe he's in the moment from fatigue forgotten, because wastelanding into that Werebear feels crazy to me, I think.
Yeah.
And look at this turn 2, right? We have a 3/3 Terravore. We've got 3 mana to the opponent's 1. Like, Mongoose is going to mean that you can never really get lackeyed in a reasonable way, and you can keep beating down while that happens.
And that was another 4/4.
Yeah, this is just so much.
I mean, this turn is painful, and we're going to see what happens. What happens here is James fetches... Again, James, I love you, man. Not being hard on you. You did really well. But he fetches the worst land in his deck, takes a point of damage, makes the Terravore a 4/4, and he naturalizes the Mox Diamond.
No.
And maybe his hand doesn't do anything, but that's kind of why I don't like the keep. The keep doesn't do that much. And it's just like, you're so behind here.
Yeah.
He's also filling up David's graveyard.
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
We've got this. If you trade resources and you don't pressure the Terrageddon deck with all these threshold guys, it's just going to like work its way towards making most of your cards irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's rough.
I still think that Mixstone is such an underplayed card. If you had Mixstone right there, well, not exactly right there, but you stop a lot.
Baldo, how many copies of Meekstone do you own, and how many are you planning to sell after it spikes following the release of this video?
It is underplayed. It's very underplayed.
No, I agree. This did feel like a big Meekstone like moment.
It doesn't stop Psychodog. If it doesn't stop Psychodog, it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't stop Psychodog. It stops Terrible. It stops Dreadnought. It stops Call of the Herd. It stops so many
one
stuff.
turn. That's the problem.
I mean, obviously, as you know, as an Elves player, I also don't respect Meekstone, but I do think it has strong... I think it's the kind of thing where this is knowing the format card pool is very valuable if you know what problems you can try and solve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you need to try and solve those problems. Does your deck need you to solve those problems?
Yeah.
Does your metagame and what you're choosing to win and lose, or to accept losing and try to win, right?
I also wonder if Terrageddon is such a bad matchup for Goblin. Again, I don't know if it's that bad, but maybe consider for Tormund script.
I guess what Crypt does is it makes you arguably a bit stronger into Replenish, but weaker into Enchantress. The thing is, like, against 4.5 color, right? 4 or 5 color Terrageddon with Meddling Mages, no Nimble Mongoose, because typically it's one or the other. Rarely it's both. And no Werebear. I think you're actually in a good place. And also their mana base is worse. I think David's list is just, like, rock solid, you know? Like, rock solid into Goblins. And this is why, and obviously James wasn't to know that, right? And James doesn't play the format as much as David does. But this is kind of my point. If you're going to be on the play at least twice in the match, or no, at most, you know, you can be on the play twice at worst in the matchup because you're the highest seed. You kind of need to try and get lucky and run them over, is my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got a bit of a tank here. I'm not sure how much action we've got in the hand. We do start seeing, so we got the port, and we do start, obviously, this is the idea of the payoff of, like, the Wasteland and the Mox Diamond, right? The thing is, the Terrageddon deck is like 30 mana sources, so I don't know how reliable it is, but here it does start to play some dividends. We see David has the board, he has the life advantage, he has the bodies advantage, but we start to see James being able to cast some spells whilst holding up port.
If you had a Siege Jungle in this situation, it would have won the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what he's thinking.
Yeah,
I guess
James,
he's...
don't side it out next time if you are watching this video.
Also, well done. Well done for making the finals, you know?
Yeah, I mean, both James and David made top 8 at the previous Big Smoke and at this Big Smoke. So congratulations to both of you.
No, good players for sure. I've been sent to the Shadow Realm by James on Survival Madness when I was playing a worse version of Elves with less lands and less 3/3s, and I didn't realize the cave-in pyrokinesis technology. Okay, so here he's playing into Pyroclasm, but not really because of port. David would need, like, land, Mox, land, and clearly he doesn't already have a land in his hand. So I think this is pretty free.
He has a crop rotation. He was waiting for a crop rotation. No. Oh, okay, no.
Obviously, I mean, crop rotation is sick. I have legacy trauma because I played that card in legacy, and because of all of the Force of Will and Days, it feels worse there. I think actually it's a lot less risky in pre-modern. Like, getting your crop rotation foiled feels so much less bad than getting your crop rotation Force of Willed.
I mean, legacy you have better options.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a big difference between crop rotation in pre-modern and crop rotation in pre-modern. But you don't have so many real targets apart from Wasteland, Port. What else is there? Maybe
Gaia's Cradle is a pretty good one.
Cradle,
in the right deck. In the right deck, right?
Yeah, but not every deck can afford to play.
There is also Serra Sanctum.
But you don't play.
I think that's going a little too deep though, because the Enchantress deck draws a million billion cards anyway.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
No exaggeration, right? They draw literally a million billion cards. They should all be disqualified for having libraries that are too big for the game or something.
Yeah.
I think if Tolarian Academy was legal, we'd see people crop rotating for that. There's also, and here we see James being quite patient, right? Like developing War Chief and just getting ready, because now he's wide enough.
I told you, yes, crop rotation. Did you do crop rotation to me before?
But, he paid
in response
the
to port.
The port,
yeah.
Right.
Get a Wasteland.
I mean, obviously the sick line here would be, oh, by the way, here's a Pyroclasm, you lose the game. But unfortunately, he doesn't have that.
I think he gave up.
Because again, he would need to have Plasm in hand and to know he's going to draw a land. Okay, halfway there. But here's the thing, like, he just has a massive Terravor, right? Yeah. He's trying to double Gem Palm it, which he doesn't have mana to do, and that's game. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the value of a large trampling body against your Goblin's opponent who's taken too long to do anything. Like, it felt like James is about 1.5 turns off of going absolutely crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, David won also this Big Smoke and the previous one. I believe both of them with Terrageddon, and the previous one was also against Goblin. So the same final, 2 Big Smoke in a row. Is this saying something? I don't know. But looks like in London, Terrageddon Goblin are the strongest decks.
Or at least, yes. Although I do think Goblins doesn't convert very well for its representation, right? There's normally one Goblins pilot that does really well and the others kind of suck it, right?
Yeah.
So, which is why I'm not so convinced that like new players coming from like Pauper or Modern, I can see why, like, you know, Balder, you wrote that article in the last Lands and Legends about how it's kind of analogous to Boros Energy, and I do see that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, Pauper players, I think, understand what Goblins is doing. It's like making land drops and drawing cards and beating down all at once, like just faster than Pauper. But I don't think it's a tier 1 deck actually anymore. I think it can behave like a tier 1.5 deck if you know what you're doing. I just think like it has too many strategic vulnerabilities. Like, it's vulnerable to its mana getting disrupted. It's vulnerable to mass removal or to having its bodies invalidated. And I think, don't get me wrong, the people who are really good at Goblins, like the James Mills or Rob last time did really well, or if Callum Smith, who now lives in Newcastle but used to be the god of Goblins in London, or Marcelo, if you're listening, he's a Legacy Goblin specialist who's been moving towards pre-modern. I think if you really, really know what you're doing, run it and try not to face too much Oath of Druids or, you know, like cards that you kind of just lose to. I think other people, like, I get if you're coming from a more contemporary card pool, right? And Modern and Pauper, though they have older cards, are very contemporary card pools. I can see you look at the Goblins deck and you're like, okay, 23, 24 lands, undercosted beaters, utility lands, cards that draw more cards whilst beating down. It feels to me the most contemporary in terms of what it's doing in some ways. The snowballing, the like very high floor cards. But just like, guys, this is pre-modern. Like, and I don't say this in an elitist way. This is a weird format. Like, if you are not a Magic boomer who played a lot back then or is used to middle school or old school, like, you are going to have to get used to different laws, different, you know, affordances of the format. And, you know, again, this is also Elves propaganda. Please don't play Goblins. I'm the only Elves player. I need to just, like, not face Goblins, and then I'll beat David Grant easily. I'll bring an end to the curse of Goblins versus Terrageddon finals. But also, I do think, while Goblins are cute and fun and nostalgic, I do think people need to just qualify their deck selection process a little bit. Even if they don't think it's their main format. I get it, right? Like, maybe it's your new second format, you're testing the water, you know, you're a bit disillusioned with some stuff. But I think if you want to come in, like, honestly, try Tide Control. Like, it's a control deck, you know, or try Burn. You'll get tired of it, but you'll learn a lot while you're playing it, I think. I don't know how much playing Goblins teaches you except how to play Goblins, you know?
I wouldn't suggest to play Tide Control as first experience in pre-modern.
Only if you're a control gamer.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I've said. If you're a control gamer, easy, yes. If you're not, I agree, there's a bit more thought required, and I don't know what the intro deck should be.
I think a very, well, I don't want to say beginner friendly, but, you know, it's a good deck for someone who hasn't played the format much. Could be a Pitrak. I think Pitrak is a monocolor, and you know, you get a lot of information by looking at the player's hand, so you kind of learn the format as you play. And it also makes other opponents' life miserable. So, you know.
I like that you get to do duress therapy, because I think Cabal therapy is a bit of a rough card to play if you're new to the format, though it's going to help you learn, right?
Yeah.
But I think getting that combination of having duress, having just generic discard like Funeral Charm. The thing about Pitrak, you're going to lose to red decks a bunch. You're going to beat blue decks a bunch. Subscribe to Nick Borman's Patreon. He doesn't have one, but like, just if you're in London, find out who he is and ask him for advice. He's very good at a lot of things, including mono black. I know that Cyrus Bales, aka Crucible of Words on YouTube, he came like 10th or 11th or something, and he was playing Jund
Jund.
Pitless Rack. So he was playing the Tempting Worm discard
Oh,
deck. The
I
Red
saw
Splash
it.
is quite light for like Grim Lavamancer type stuff,
It was a
and
very
you have 8
interesting
was-
list,
fetches.
actually.
That list was so cool.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes sense. You play 5
Yes.
for turn 2, but your opponent doesn't have anything in his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the run.
And you get to play the like Ravenous Rats Cabal Therapy thing. You get to play Sylvan Library. You get to play some Call of that. You get to play like good cards and have quite good mana for the format because you can play 8 fetches, right? Admittedly, the shared color is red, and you're probably base green. But I don't know if Cyrus is maybe going to make a YouTube video with his list. I hope he does. I know that Neon Mushroom of the YouTube channel Fluorescent Fungus recently had some Jund Wormless. I think that's another decent entry point because you have some of that pit wreck stuff. You have more difficulty with like having worse mana, right? But you get to play a discard deck and learn a bit, but you also get to play some generically good green and red cards. So though that's not a very conventional strategy, it's not very established, I don't think it's a bad place. Like I think things like Burn, Pit Rack, some kind of green, black, or Jund like aggro discard pile, with the understanding that you're going to be either using cheap printings or proxies, and you're going to diversify. And if you're a control player, like just don't play standstill, okay? Just like play a good deck. And yeah, that would be my takeaway. Like I think Goblins is strong in the right hands, but I still think it's overrepresented, to be honest. And I think, you know, if you don't want to like lose to like random fluctuator gamers or whatever, no, I mean I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean. Like I think a lot of the wins Goblins collects are going to decline over time because you beat up, apart from black decks, you mainly beat up a lot of random bullshit. And I think as time goes on, I think people will keep innovating. I think that people try a lot of different tier 1 and 2 decks. There's a lot of variety. But I also do think that as time goes on in the Southeast, people are going to slowly play less random bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Any takeaways, guys? Any thoughts? Any
No,
vibes?
I mean,
I agree with you.
yeah.
In case of Goblin,
Same.
I still believe it's a tier 1 deck, but it declines. It's going to decline a little bit. So now, and as you say, it's the right deck in the right hands.
Yes. And to be clear, I think it's a deck you have to have a plan for. Like you can't play the format and not have an idea of what you're doing against that deck.
You need to be Goblin. You have to be
I
Goblin
just think
something.
it's not going to be. I think it's already not a dominant UK meta game force in the way that it was like a few months ago. And maybe now it's the time to play Goblins, right? No, but like I think a lot of the plans you can have for it come from experience and playing cards you want to play anyway, right? Like land hate and creature removal are like fundamental to the format. So yeah, maybe the next thing is also for people who feel like they've played enough. They're not beginners, right? They're not doing starter decks, and they've gotten some reps in with Goblins or random mid-range piles. Maybe you guys want to start thinking about like learning how to play kind of powerful but difficult decks like Terrageddon as well, right? I can see how that feels, or some of the powerful blue decks that aren't Dreadnought.
The most difficult deck in the format.
It's not the most. I think the most difficult is pattern.
Probably it's more
no,
Shapeshifter. No, I think it's Shapeshifter.
Pattern reactor. I think.
No.
So those are mechanically difficult decks to play. You know, and those exist. I don't know how strategically difficult they are to play. I think like Angry Hermit's also like, you know, difficult to understand how to play at its best, but like strategically
there was no
very clear.
Angry Hermit at all amongst these 52 players, which is interesting to see as well. There were a few, I don't want to say random, but I will say random decks, so I will just actually give a shout out to Merfolk. There was one Merfolk. Then there was, we say, the Fluctuator. Then there was there was a Sneaky Dragon playing by Steven Taverner, I believe. And then there was also Domain Pile, which means nothing to me. But yeah, I guess he was playing 5 colors.
Yeah, and you have like collective restraint and allied strategies and stuff like that. Just like powerful control cards that only work if you resolved 2 rampant growths or something like that.
Then there was a Rifter, a mono white Rifter.
Oh,
Interesting.
okay.
Slide, GW Slide. And yeah,
Oh,
I think
Astro Slide, I think.
Astro Slide, yeah.
Celestial Astro Slide
Yeah.
with Cartographer, I believe.
But
Which
yeah, I
is
think
cool.
this
It's
is
cool. But no Eternal Witness. Without Eternal Witness, doesn't work.
And also, you're not going to beat Armageddon or Parallax Tide unless maybe, you play, I guess, some Sacred Ground and some Carpet of Flowers or something. And that's okay then, then you can just lose to elves and it's great. Like, it's fine. No, I mean, you can't beat everything, right? But I do think mid-range gamers, think about how you're protecting those land drops, guys, because
Yeah.
it's all well and good to make the land drops, but are the lands going to be available to be tapped in your main phase? Who knows?
And if you're playing white, play Sheltering Prayers. I don't know if you know the cards. I've been commending.
I mention it just
I've been commending this card a lot. So
I think people are not looking at that Galileo. So it's a deck you can actually play everything with 3 mana. And you have Sheltering Prayers in sideboard. So once you develop Sheltering Prayers, you just do whatever you want.
Sheltering Prayers, in case people weren't clear on this, is another card that Valve has bought up the entire UK supply of.
No, it's not. It's not true. I saw other people.
Man was like, I have all the copies though.
you just bought them off me. That's all.
No, I agree. I think the card pool is still underexplored. I also recommend people read Nick Borman's article in the latest Lands and Legends, where he talks about like thinking about how to approach the card pool from a brewer's and like tweakers, innovators perspective. That's going to be available online sometime in the week starting 21st of July, so quite soon. And he also is one of those people that just has such good knowledge of the formats, card pool. Like, I kind of stop at, like, I like Horned Karvu. I want to figure out how to play Horned Karvu in decks. Whereas I like, how you guys and, like, people like Nick are, like, really in the weeds. Meekstone is beginners stuff at this point, I think.
There was also, sorry if I interrupt.
No, go for it.
I was talking to Alex Wilson that he brought a mono red Ponza, which was a very interesting take as well. He actually did pretty well. He said that he was quite happy with the deck. So hopefully he's going to maybe discuss it a little bit in the group. But we also have a PreModern group, so get in touch if you want to be added to the WhatsApp group. Let's grow the community.
Yeah, the group is generally lovely. Occasionally we have doom spirals about secret lair printings or me going off against generative AI, but most of the time the vibes are really good. I honestly think people's enthusiasm to talk about both like cool card printings they've bought, but also brewing and innovating on shells is like a lovely thing, and so do come on in.